I'm
not a crook. The attacks on our bases and our troops by Iranian-supplied munitions have increased in the last few months, despite pledges by Iran to help stabilize the security situation in Iraq. I will take actions necessary to protect our troops. I have authorized our military commanders in Iraq to confront Tehran's murderous activities.
All right, now you cite that among many others.
In this article, they've been pitching this new idea of hitting the Revolutionary Guards, more limited, more surgical, more carefully drawn up, planned attack, and where, for example, the Brits, who were very hostile to the idea of 1,000 points of lights, bombing all the heavy Air Force coming and bombing all the nuclear facilities, and it takes a lot of bombs, many of them are underground. The Brits are interested in this idea. There's been expressions of interest from Australia, other countries. The Israelis, of course, have gone bananas, so they're very upset about the idea of not going. If you're going to go into Iran, the Israeli position is very firm. They want us to go, and they want us to hit hard. You do not, as somebody, an Israeli told me, if you run into a lion, you either shoot it or ignore it. You don't pluck out its eyebrows. Going in and taking out the Revolutionary Guards and not taking out the nuclear facilities for the Israelis is a non-starter. But that's the plan. The plan is to be more surgical, more careful, and they're getting some of their allies on board.
And here's what else you write. You say, now the emphasis is on surgical strikes on Revolutionary Guard Corps facilities in Tehran and elsewhere, which the administration claims have been the source of attacks on Americans in Iraq. What had been presented primarily as a counter-proliferation mission has been reconceived as counter-terrorism, and there's obviously different kinds of military moves you deal with fighting terrorism as opposed to proliferation, nuclear weapons, for example.
Absolutely, and you can also sell counter-terror. It's much more logical. You can say to people, the American people, we're only hitting those people that we think are trying to kill our boys and our and the coalition forces. And so that seems to be more sensible. The White House thinks they can actually pitch this. This would actually work. In other words, you could do a bombing and not have the world scream at us, and also get the British on board.
Let me also read this line. A Pentagon consultant on counterterrorism told me that if the bombing campaign took place, it would be accompanied by a series of what he called short, sharp incursions by American Special Forces units into suspected Iranian training sites. He said, quote, Cheney is devoted to this, no question. So it wouldn't just be airstrikes. So what you're saying, there would be limited ground strikes as well involving U.S. Special Operations Forces.
We've got Special Operations Forces on the border right now, championing to go in there, and Waziristan too. They want to go look for Bin Laden. We've got a lot of very competent, aggressive Special Forces guys that want to go in, and it's going to be touch and go. I think I don't know what's going to happen. If we do go in, you're going to have to go in on the ground, not only to get the camps with the Special Forces. The Iranians have a lot of anti-aircraft missiles along the coast that are dug in, and you probably can't get to them from air, so you might have to send Marines in to go blow them up one by one. You don't want these guys shooting down your airplanes.
You've been writing about this possibility of a U.S. military strike on Iran for some time.
Year and a half.
It hasn't happened yet, but you're convinced before the president leaves office it might happen?
Oh, well, that's easy. I don't know. What I do know is he wants to do something. He will not leave Iran in a position to be a nuclear power, in a position to be the threat. And the other point that's made in the article, one of the other points, is the White House understands that the world perceives Iran as the winner of the American sort of colossal failure we've had in Iraq. I mean, the screw-up in Iraq has put Iran in enormous power because the Shiites in the south of Iraq are very close to their
And one new element in all of this, you mentioned the British on board, the Australians, but France, the new government of President Sarkozy, the new foreign minister, Bernard Kouchner, who was here last week on Late Edition, they're sounding a lot different than their predecessors, President Chirac and Dominique de Villepin.
Absolutely. They're very tough. The French really believe the Iranians are very close to a bomb, and they see that as an issue. But it's also interesting because my friends there are people, the French also are communicating they are not in favor of a strike. So they're the loudest on the outside. They're making a lot of noise about we must do something politically. They're putting a lot of pressure on the Iranians. I think the French would very much like to see the Iranians get serious. But they're not serious in the talks at this point, from our point of view, because until they agree to give up developing enriched uranium, as far as we're concerned, we're not going to deal with them.
target Iran, why the administration is redefining its case against Tehran. Seymour Hersh is the reporter writing in the new issue of the New Yorker magazine. Cy, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
And coming up, the exiled former Pakistani Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. She'll tell us why death threats, she says, will not keep her from returning home. Also, coming up right now, the Iraqi Foreign Minister Hoshyar Zebari. He's standing by live in New York. Stay with Late Edition. We'll be right back.